Welcome back to Cask and Point. Today is a great day because we are trying a bunch of different Rare Character KOA. Now, if you didn't catch my first video on KOA, you should check that out. It's going to be somewhere on your screen right now. And I talked a lot about KOA there, but I'll give a little bit more of the spiel here. But let's take a little step back. Rare Character. I give this speech in every single video that I do of Rare Character. There are 5 important bullet points started by Pablo and Peter in 2021. They source all of their whiskeys from Willet, from Heaven Hill, from MGP. They are all cask strength expressions, and they do a bunch of different barrel codes. And so they have over 50 barrel codes right now. I've reviewed quite a few on the channel already. I'll continue to review more and more as I get the samples in to try them all. But my favorite, and most people's favorite right now, is Rare Character KOA. Now, we don't know what KOA stands for, but we know that it's 8 to 9 year, or really 8.5 to a little over 9-year-old Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Likely Barton sourced, according to the rumors, but we don't know anything for certain, so I'm not going to go ahead and claim that that's the truth. But they have supposedly 18 single barrels. Now, we know at this point that 17 have released, and we know rumors of several more releasing, so it's going to be more than 18. I believe we know information on 24 of them right now, but there could be upwards of 30. Only time will tell. But today we're going to try 5 more of them. Now, in my last video, we tried 3. We tried Riley's, which is right here, Riley's Wine of the World. We tried Prime Barrel, and then we also tried my current favorite and what many consider to be the king of KOA, Just Bottles, 8-year, 11-month, 140.82 proof. But today we're going to try some good competition. We are going to be trying some older and some newer KOAs. We're going to be trying 2 hazmats. Baytowne, which is 140 proof, 8-year, 7-month. We're going to be trying Liquor Guys, which is 140.8 proof, 8-year, 7-month. Then we're going to be trying Tenuta's Deli, which is 136.26 proof, 9-year. Then we'll be trying Green Meadows, which is 135.6 proof, and that's 8 years, 8 months. I have my cheat sheets here, which are my sample jars. And then Southern Spirits is 137.2 proof, and that's 8 years and 9 months. So all in the 8.5 to 9 year range. And the lowest we have is 135.6, but we're going to go up to 140.8, the second highest after Just Bottles. And if you couldn't tell already, I am very, very excited to do this with you guys because I have been so excited to collect KOAs. As you can tell, the collection of KOAs is growing. But today we're going to try 5 more that I have not tried yet already. We're going to rate them, we're going to rank them, we're going to talk about how they compare to other KOAs, we're going to talk about how amazing KOA is. Let's get right into it. We are going to start with Baytowne. Now, Baytowne is KOA 003. Again, it's 140 proof, 8-year, 7-month, absolutely gorgeous bottle. And right now, for what it's worth, the hazmats, which are 4 hazmats right now, Liquor Guys, Baytowne, Just Bottles, and Prime. We tried 2 in the last video, we're trying the other 2 today, so those are the 4 hazmats. And those are commanding around 350 on secondary to 400, but it's hard to tell because Liquor Guys and Baytowne are commanding that. Just Bottles commands around 500, and Prime doesn't exist on secondary because it went to a private group of a bunch of people that don't want to resell it. So it's hard to tell what these things are truly worth, but those are worth probably around 375, and then the others are around 275 to 300, but again, pretty unclear. MSRP 150 on these, although it might actually be a little bit lower, and every store has been upcharging them because Riley's was 125, and most Rare Characters have been in the 100 to 125 range, so this would be a pretty expensive one at 150, so we don't actually know what the true rightful MSRP was. Pretty much every store is charged 150. Anyways, I can talk about KOA all day. Let's drink some KOA with some Baytowne. So on the nose here, a lot of musty oak and spice. There's definitely some plums in there, but I'm not getting a ton of red, bright red fruit on this one. It's much more darker fruit, berries. Yeah, overall, I mean, it smells very good. It smells spicy, it smells a little bit fruity, and it smells like musty oak. So, smells like a KOA, but I think relative to others, this is a bit more plum forward, which I quite like. But, you know, pretty spicy, pretty musty oak. Let's take a sip. Ooh. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. It starts off a little bit fruity. And then it transitioned into like this rye spice, but a really candied caramel at the same time. So it's almost like a mixture of essentially rye candy, but it's a bourbon, which is really funky. And then that rye just kind of really takes you out, but it maintains a strong level of sweetness as well. Definitely drinks 110 proof. It does not drink anywhere close to 140. But this is hazmat, and man, is it good. I would, definitely say that this one for me is going to beat Riley's and Prime for sure. And I'll be honest, so I rated the 3 already, and we'll talk about the ratings at the end, but I'd probably lower all of them but the good old Just Bottles here, which is just the absolute king. I think I might have overrated Prime and Riley's a little bit, but this is definitely going to beat all of those other than Just Bottles. It is definitely a little bit spicy, I will say, but it's like a spicy candy as well, which just makes this absolutely delicious. Let's take one more sip and then let's move on. Oh my god. It's an amazing bottle of whiskey. That rye candy that hits you is so unique. And there are plums throughout this, but it's a rye candy forward bourbon, which is just something I have not really ever tried, but that is absolutely divine. That is delicious. Man, that is so good. I want to drink more of that, and I wish I had a bottle. I don't have a bottle of it right now, but man, that one is just absolutely incredible. That's going to be high 8s for sure. Let's move on to Liquor Guys. So, like I said, we've done Baytowne here. Also, all these samples were from a very good buddy of mine named Colin. Thank you so much, Colin. Could not have done this without you. I am just so excited that you put in the work to get all these bottles so that I get to enjoy them. You are a real one. But now we're going to do Liquor Guys. This is KOA 12, 012, 140.8 proof, which puts it second highest. Just Bottles is 140.82, so it is a whopping 0.02 proof lower, and 8 years and 7 months, which puts it, in range, maybe slightly young for KOA, but really, it's a month or two difference, so it's not a big difference. But let's try some Liquor Guys. And the nose here, I'm just getting rye spice. I'm not getting a ton else. A really strong spicy note on this one. There's a little bit of plum and a little bit of musty oak, but it kind of just tastes like rye, smells like rye spice here. It's not bad, but I don't know, it's not nearly as appealing as this Baytowne. Yeah, like this is so sweet caramel, rye candy, musty oak. This is kind of just spice. And a little bit of plum in there, and these have all been sitting for about half an hour, by the way. So they've opened up. I know high proof stuff, you got to open them up a little, but yeah, I don't know. Doesn't smell especially incredible, but doesn't smell bad. So let's take a sip. Kind of just boring. It's rye, spice, and oak. Like, the flavor isn't super deep on that one, where I don't know, it's just like, it doesn't taste anywhere close to 140 proof. And when I first tried these, I had said that a lot of them tasted, closer to 140, and I think it's because these bottles tend to really open up, and so on the neck pour, they're really just tons and tons of flavor. But I think once the bottle opens up for a week or two, and all these bottles have been open up for a little bit, I think once they open up a little, and also they sit in the glass, they just, kind of lose a little bit of flavor. And every KOA that I've had, which is a whopping 2 that I actually own the bottle of, have cracked and have tried multiple times, the neck pour was a good bit more enjoyable than the rest of the bottle, which is a little bit of a red flag, which actually may have created a good amount of hype in the very beginning because people tried their open bottles and then they were just kind of disappointed with them after a while. But this is all to say, I once thought that they did taste closer to 140 proof. This tastes like 110. It's not super flavorful, and to be honest, that not tasting 140 proof is working against it. I like my punchy whiskeys. This is a little bit disappointing. Let's take a second sip here, and then we'll move on. Yeah. I mean, that gave me a little bit more character, but it's spicy with some oak. It's almost a short to medium finish, which is weird because this is a hazmat whiskey that's nearly 9 years old and should absolutely fill my mouth with flavor. It's not really doing that. So, a bit odd. But yeah, that one is probably going to be in the low 8s, if that. Maybe even in the 7s. I am not very impressed. Some have said that Liquor Guys is their least favorite KOA that they've ever tried. I get it. Yeah, I totally understand. So, I don't love it, but let's keep moving down the list. So next up, we have Tenuta's Deli, which is a pretty cool photo. I mean, these all have cool photos, but I do like Tenuta's Deli. It's like a family style. KOA 02727, 136.26 proof, and it's 9 years old, which is the oldest age statement out of any KOA, and I don't believe any of these were 9 years old, right? So I think that it might actually be the only 9 year, but I'll look into that and I'll let you guys know some on the screen, but none of them have been older. I know some other companies that sourced supposedly the same stuff as KOA, like binders ended up having like 9 year, 1 month to 3 month, and those were all ended up hazmat. So I don't know, but these are all a little bit younger, but that's okay. But this one is 9 years old and 136.26 proof. So the stats are there. Let's see how good it is. Okay, a lot more fruit on this one than we've gotten on the last two. Definitely that dark plum on this one. Very good. There's rye spice in there. There's vanilla. There's oak. Not a ton of musty oak, like Just Bottles that has like a ton of musty oak on it. But it smells good. It smells very good. Yeah, not super complex. There is a little bit of heat on this one, which, again, a little bit surprising considering, it's 9 years old and probably, supposed to be really refined, but also it's 136 proof, so I get it. Let's take a sip. Woohoo! That's fruit and then spice. Oh yeah, that's a KOA. Oh, that's delicious. Okay, so we start with fruit. And we start with like a decadent, like plum, some peaches. We get the kind of complexity of fruit that we get on like Just Bottles. We're gonna get a lot of, by the way, I keep talking about Just Bottles. This is the king of KOA right here, right? This, when we talk KOA, this is what we're talking about. I've talked to the gentleman that runs this store, that made this bottle, that picked this photo. He is an absolute lad. And, I'm very lucky that I get to know him personally now because he's just an amazing guy and picked an amazing barrel of whiskey. But anyways, I'll try to stop talking about Just Bottles as much. But this one, it's going to start with that fruit decadence, the cherry, the plum. It's going to give us some figs, some dates, and then just turn into like a beautiful spice, rye candy aroma, similar to the Baytowne. And this is neck and neck with the Baytowne, at least on the first sip here, but it just really develops on that pour. I mean, it's just so good. Man, I mean, it doesn't smell as good as the Baytowne, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, the Baytowne is going to give you a little bit more caramel and a little bit more rye spice. So, it's a little bit different on the nose. This is a little bit fruitier, which I think, it makes it a little bit more well-balanced, but honestly, I will say none of the noses, at least so far, have been super strong. And that could just be me. Maybe I'm just not smelling a ton of things today. But I expected a little bit more, real like punch, hitting the nostrils on these. And they're not really doing that. But I don't tend to judge a whiskey by just its nose. So let's take a second sip here. That's delicious. This is delicious. So, that fruit, and then it turns into like a rye candy, but the fruit is still there, and then you could just, ease into like oak at the end. And it's not a pepper, like it's very, very explicitly not a pepper. It's just an oak that really takes you out. Maybe a little bit of grassy, like dill note, but man, that is really good. That's going to be at least mid-8s, might be high 8s. We'll circle back around. That is a delicious KOA. That and Baytowne are clearly in the lead. Liquor Guys, not that good. Let's move on to Green Meadow. Now, Green Meadow was the only KOA that was split, which means that two different stores, Christie's and Green's Meadows, basically said, we'll split the barrel of KOA down the line. It has, I believe they both have the exact same pick, which is like a bourbon base pick. And I'm not sure if they're somehow connected liquor stores. I'm sure they must be if they did a split pick with each other. But they put their own names on the label, but they're the same whiskey. They're the same barrel code. They're KOA 103 or 103, 135.6 proof and 8 year, 8 month. Now, 135.6 proof is the lowest proof of any KOA. That being said, it is tied with good old, actually Green Storms is 135.96, but one of them is 136. I believe, I'm trying to remember what the 137, well, 130, oh, there is a 135.74. That's barrel tap. What is 135.6? Is it the only 135.6? Maybe it's the only 135.6, and I'm crazy. I don't know, but it's 135.6. It is the lowest. They have not released one that's lower than that. Hopefully they don't. But it is the lowest proof, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst. Let's try it. But first, let's cleanse the palate. Oh, that smells musty. That smells older than all the three that we've tried so far. A little bit of red fruit and plum kind of sticking out there, but is a really strong musty oak note here that isn't really letting way to much else. There's some rye spice, a little bit of dill. That smells old though. Like that, I mean, that's an 8 year, 8 month, right? Which also makes it one of the younger ones for the KOAs. So it's young and it's low proof, but certainly not smelling like that. Let's try it and let's see how good it is. Okay, that's a good KOA. So it actually is very similar to the Greens Farms pick here, which, by the way, has one of, if not the coolest sticker. I don't know if I'd say the coolest, but, the Just Waters one is pretty dope, but definitely up there. But it tastes actually very similar. So it starts off fruity and then gets spicy towards the end. I think it's a very simple development. It's here's some fruit, here's some plums, here's some cherry, and then here's just rye spice to take you out. It's a good pour. It's, again, drinking like 110, 115 proof, which is a little bit disappointing if I'm being honest, but it is still very delicious. I think it's going to be worse than Baytowne and Tenuta Deli here, but still very good. Let's take a second sip. Yeah, it's a little bit oakier, which is surprising because it's younger than everything here. But I guess it's only younger by like a month or 2 months. And actually, I guess Liquor Guys is 8 years, 7 months. So it's actually not the youngest on the year. But it's pretty good. But it's not giving me anything special in the way that the others were. Like, I think the others were giving me certain unique qualities that I really, really liked. This one is just, here's fruit, here's spice. And so far, they've all been short to medium, maybe medium length finishes. They're not really just taking you out, which is a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the final one, and then we'll go back through and give everything a rating. But we are doing Rare Character KOA, Southern Spirits, KOA 519, 137.2 proof, 8 year, 9 month. Now, Southern Spirits likes to say that they're the second best liquor store in the world. I don't really know why they're not the best. Maybe because they just didn't want to get enough flack for saying that they're the best, or they say they're the second best. They have a YouTube channel. They're really cool. They seem to give away all their things at MSRP. They're really allocated stuff, and they seem to get a lot of it. And I believe they're the only store that actually is not only got one KOA, but actually getting a second KOA, I believe, sometime in December. So good for them. Apparently, they're just that store. I mean, they must be the best liquor store if they got 2 different KOAs, because every other store got one, and most stores didn't get any, and that wanted them. So pretty cool for Southern Spirits. They're definitely earning at least second place on the liquor store front. But anyways, let's see just how good their first KOA turned out. Okay, this one is a bit more caramel forward. caramel, and rye. It's not giving me a ton else. Not really giving me any red fruit at all on the nose. I mean, it's really caramel, rye, and a little bit of oak. It's a really strong caramel, though. Like, really, like, this is the most caramel-forward one. Let's try it. So on the palate, it's a little bit more rye spice and caramel. It's not blowing me away, though. It's good, but it's not great. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. I think my rankings are pretty set, even before rating everything. I think this is going to be my fourth favorite. I think Liquor Guys is going to lose today, but this one is just not super fruity. And I do think fruit tends to add an element that can cut through the rye spice and the oak that are pretty much going to be there on the cheapest of whiskeys you try, the most expensive whiskeys you try. There's going to be a little bit of oak, a little bit of rye spice, but unless you have a weeder, so then fine. But this is just kind of giving me that without that red fruit, tertiary element that can really play a good role in adding complexity to the pour, which is working against it. But let's take a second sip here and see if it stays that way. Yeah, I'm not nearly as impressed by this one. I think it's fine. I think it's going to be bottom half of all KOAs that have ever been released. I think it's probably better than Prime, maybe. I don't know. It's close, but yeah, today that's going to be probably low 8s. And I'm talking negatively about it because there are just a lot of better pours here, but it's not a bad pour. But I don't know. This is the kind of thing that I might want to throw this in a blind with like a Stag Junior and a bunch of other things, and just see if it really holds up at all, because, I don't want to rate this. I don't want to overrate this just because it's a KOA, and I think so highly of KOAs because it's not that good. Not all KOAs were created equal, and this is why we do these things, and this is why, as you can probably tell from the channel, I'm obsessed with trying different batches, different things. We're halfway through the Stag Junior batch series. We're gonna do all the Thomas Handys. We're gonna do all the Elijah Craigs. We've done all the Wild Turkey Master's Keep. I love trying different batches of different things, and it's because, man, is there such variance on even the things that you really like with a single series. But let's take this final sip and let's give it a rating. So on that one, give me a little bit of caramel candy and rye that I liked. But there's just very little fruit on that. There's some just slightly lingering plum, slightly lingering cherry, but I have to really fight and really tell myself that it's there for me to taste it at all, which is a little bit disappointing. That's a pour that I couldn't really care to have a bottle of that one. It's good, but meh, I'm not blown away. I'm somewhere between a 7.8 and an 8.1. I just don't think it deserves any better than that. I'm thinking of my favorite Stag Junior batches, which, I'd rate around an 8.3, and I don't think it's beating them. So I think I'm going to rate this a flat 8. I think it's good. It's weekly sipper level. It's still a very enjoyable pour, but it's just not holding up to the rest of at least these 3 really good ones that are like shocking me with their flavor. So I think 8. I think 8 is fair. I think it's doing some cool things. No, I'm gonna give it a 7.9. I'm gonna give it a 7.9. I think take the last tiny sip here, because it just doesn't have the fruit. It just doesn't. We shouldn't overrate things just because we know that they're supposedly good things. That's a 7.9. And I think if I retried that, if I did that in a blind, it might not even stand up to that. It's still a good pour. It's still, going to kill most of the market, right? And I still think it's going to beat most rare characters that are out there. But in the KOA department, that is going to be a 7.9. That is probably going to be 4th today. But let's go back and let's rate the rest of them. So we are back on, Green Meadows here. 135.6 proof. Let's see how it stacks up. The nose has stayed the same. It's fruity with some spice, with some oak. It smells delicious. And it tastes delicious too. So much better. So much better. In fact, I'm going to rate this one a 7.8. I'm trying to think, because I have Stag 23C at a 7.8. Would I really take this over Stag 23C? I wouldn't. I'm going to give this a 7.8. But this Greens and Meadows is going to definitely get into the low 8s. I think I'm around an 8.2 for it. 8.2, 8.3. I think its problem is just, it's the finish that's killing them. None of these have a super long finish. And so the palate is really good, but the flavor isn't staying in my mouth for super, super long. I'm going to rate this an 8.2. I think it's a great pour. I still think I'd probably take my favorite Stag Junior batches over it, but I think for $150, I'd buy that. I'd buy 2 of that. I wouldn't buy more than that, but it's good. It's very good. Let's go back to Tenuta's Deli. So this one, I believe, is going to beat the last 2, but let's find out. Caramel, musty oak, some spice. Like a really interesting caramel candy note on this. Man, that just smells so good. Let's try it. That's delicious. That's delicious. No, that's delicious.
Spectacular. Give me 14 of them right now.
All right. Now, remember, I rate on an exponential scale. And so the difference between a 5 and a 6, not that big. The difference between a 6 and a 7, it's decent. 7 and 8, pretty huge. 8 and 9, massive. And so when I say this is a 7.8, this is an 8.2, and this is an 8.6, the difference is, like, these are so much closer to each other than this one. This is amazing. 8.6 is the rating today. I think what's holding it back is the finish. If it had a longer finish, it'd be absolutely delicious. This is beating Riley's, which I'd previously rated an 8.6, and Prime that I rated an 8.4. I'd probably say Riley's is closer to an 8.3, and Prime is closer to an 8.1. I will be revisiting them at some point down the line for possibly a pretty cool video where I try a lot more than 5 KOAs in a single video, so we'll see. But yeah, I think this is an 8.6. I think this is absolutely delicious whiskey. I would buy a lot of these at $150. I'd buy a case. I'd buy 2 cases. I might buy 3 because I'd be giving a lot of samples out to friends. That's amazing. That's Tenuta's Deli. They knew what they were doing. Let's move on to Liquor Guys. Liquor Guys. Still kind of just smells like spice. 140.8 proof. 8 year, 7 month. A really cool logo. And yet, just smells like spice. Let's take a sip. Actually, you know what? It's better than Southern. It's better than Southern. Not by a lot. But there's at least a little bit of rye candy on it. A little bit of caramel sweetness. A little bit longer of a finish. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7.9. Which, to be clear, for a bottle that's commanding $375 on secondary is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's going to beat Southern, but not by much. I do think it is better, though. I think it definitely did better on, going back around to it. But it's just because Southern is really boring. And Southern is not one that people typically say is the worst KOA that they've had. So maybe I have to revisit that one. But, and I will be. I mean, we do have more of it, so we will be revisiting it. But yeah, I think today it's a 7.8, and Liquor Guys is going to beat it just slightly at 7.9. Let's move on to the lovely Baytowne. See if it's first or see if it's second, because I think it's going to be one of those two. 140 proof. Now, 140 proof is debatably hazmat. And hear me out. The law for flying on an airplane is that you are allowed to take alcohol that's up to 70% alcohol. Now, that includes 70% alcohol things. That doesn't include 70.01% alcohol things. And so, if that is the standard for hazmat, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, we can debate it, we can have a conversation, that would mean that hazmat begins at 140.01, which means that Prime and Baytowne, which are both, I believe, 140 just on the label, they don't say 0.0 anything, they just say 140. Are they hazmat? I don't know. But they do have a 1.4 in the beginning, and that's what makes them cool. But anyways, thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Let's try it. Let's see how good it is. I mean, the nose is just actually complex in a way that a lot of these other ones weren't. There's fruit, there's rye spice, there's oak. It's giving me a lot of things that I really like in a way that I think a lot of these other pours just weren't doing as much of. Let's try it. 8.7. It's the winner. The finish is the longest. It's at least medium length. Fruit, musty oak, vanilla, plums, cherries, figs, date. There are several different fruits in this. There are peaches, there's some of that stone fruit, there's some of the red fruit, there's a little bit of berry fruit, and there's also oak and spice. There's just so much going on in this pour. That is delicious. So let's conclude the rankings here. We have Baytowne in first place at 8.7. We have Tenuta's Deli's in second place at 8.6. In third place, we have Green Meadows at an 8.2. Massive jump. These two are not like the rest. 8.2, so it's actually more like these two up here, and then these two can be all back here. And 8.2, Green Meadows. We have 7.9 Liquor Guys, 7.8 Southern Spirits. And, I think, I will revisit all of these in due time. We do have about an ounce of the samples left, so definitely stay tuned for all that. So, these rankings can change a little bit, but today, Tenuta's Deli's and Baytowne were not even comparable to the rest. But thank you all for watching. As you can tell, I love KOA. We're going to be doing more KOA videos in the future. We're going to be doing more Rare Character videos in the future. We're going to do more videos on so many different cool things. We have a lot of samples to enjoy together, so I hope you all stay tuned for that. For now, have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.